Okay, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the first episode of the Coffee and Takes podcast. I'm very honored and privileged to have a good friend of mine, Enes, on the podcast today. We haven't seen each other in a good while, so what better way to have a catch-up than have him on the podcast, put him under pressure. But Enes, welcome to the podcast, brother.
Ali, thank you, man. It's a real pleasure, a privilege, to be your first guest. And I know we're going to dive into a lot of topics today. We're going to go through a lot. We had a little discussion off cam about a few bits, and it's a shame the microphone wasn't running already, but I'm sure we'll dive straight back into it for sure.
We'll repeat those gems that we didn't talk about. So good to have you here, brother. First of all, how's things been for you? What's new? What's changed? I know you recently came back from Algeria. What was that like?
That was an experience, to say the least. So obviously Algeria is back home. So it's the first time I've been there in 10 years.
Wow.
In a decade. So it's been a long time. Got a chance to catch up with a lot of family, see a lot of family that I haven't seen for quite some time. But an experience is how I would describe it. For people like us who our parents came over to this country, and we were born and bred here, it's like two different worlds. And I'm sure you'd appreciate that. I'm sure some of the people watching will appreciate that as well. But mentalities are different in both countries, how things run, systems or lack thereof. But it was great to see family and to meet some new family. I hadn't met any of my wife's family over there, so wow. That was an opportunity.
That was your first time back in how long?
In 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah. So it's been a long time, to be fair.
Were you swarmed at the airport when you arrived?
At the airport, we had a good welcome, and we had family waiting there for us. And everywhere we went, to be fair, we were welcomed, with open arms and looked after. So the family side of things was great, was fantastic. Dealing with some of the systems out there, I won't go too deep into it, but it was definitely an experience for sure.
Yeah. I remember when I went to Libya in 2009. That was the last time I went back, and I just felt like Michael Jackson getting off the plane. Yeah. Just hundreds of people. Yeah, I was like, what's going on here? Who are you? But it was an incredible experience, and obviously, I was born there. And we moved here when I was 4 years old, and. Were you born in Algeria as well?
Born and bred in Bedfordshire, England.
In Bedford?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Good old Bedford, man. So, yeah, I mean, obviously the background that we both came from has had an effect on us. What Absolutely. Would you say, being an immigrant, what would you say it's done for you in terms of the way you live your life, and what do you believe it's sort of impacted you on?
It's that's a good tough question to start with.
Yeah,
it's a good tough question. But what I would say is that touching on the two worlds side of thing. At home it's like we live in one world, and then when we leave the house, it's like we're living in another world. It also gives you, like, I have a massive amount of respect for my dad. Mm-hmm. To see what he's done. Coming from Algeria, moving over here, not knowing a word of English when he first initially moved over here to study, and building what he's built in this country is, I have a huge amount of respect for my dad to see what he's done. And, a lot of guys watching this who are from similar backgrounds to us will really resonate with that, because imagine being our sort of age or even younger and coming to a new environment where you don't know a single word of that country's language, and then to go on to do what he's done here. He's been a university professor for the last 25 odd years, and he's been one of the best in his field. It's given me a massive amount of respect towards my parents, both of them, my mum as well, helping my dad as well, and aiding him along the journey too. It's a bit of an identity crisis as well at times, because when I'm here, I'm Enes the Algerian, and when I'm back home, I'm Ennis the English guy. You know, there's that to manage as well.
And you always want to make sure that you exceed expectations, don't you?
Absolutely.
Because everyone back home is like, well, you're there, you're lucky.
Yeah. You've made it, you know, because the goal is when you go back home, the goal is to leave the country, right? And to go set up shop somewhere else. So the fact that, you know, you're the lucky one, you live over in the UK, so you've made it already. So yeah, there is definitely an expectation on your back as well to achieve your own goals too. And I think it's difficult, or it's more difficult for us because we were born in, well, I know you moved over here, but we grew up in a comfort zone, if you will. You know, it's a lot easier growing up here than it is back home. So in order to, you know, to do your own thing and build your own thing, you have to create the hunger and
100%.
put yourself in uncomfortable situations, you know. Alhamdulillah, you know, I can't complain. My upbringing wasn't a difficult one, but I always wanted more growing up. You know, I didn't want to settle for less.
Where do you think that came from? That desire for more?
To be honest with you, I don't know. Maybe watching my dad and seeing what he did and thinking, you know, I want to make family proud, you know, and achieve and just continuously, you know, push for bigger goals. I think I have to mention my older brother as well. You know, if it wasn't for him on the journey that I'm currently on as well, I wouldn't have achieved a lot of things that I've achieved so far. And I think there's been a bit of a healthy, competitive, you know, nature between the two of us, which is good. We've pushed each other, and we work together as well in our day-to-day lives. So some people say, you know, going into business with your family can be difficult.
That's a controversial one, isn't it?
It is. Some people swear by it and say, you know, no, doing business with family is great, etc., etc. Some people say don't go near it. You know, working with my brother on a daily basis, we've had great, fantastic wins together, and we've celebrated some amazing wins. And we've also butted heads a lot of the time as well. You know, we'd both be
you
quite
are
happy.
Algerian.
Yeah, well, there you go. But yeah, we'd both be quite happy to admit that. But at the end of the day, I think because we're brothers, we're always able to fall back on that. And even if we do butt heads, we come back and we say, look, let's go again. Let's attack whatever we're trying to attack together. And yeah, we've, you know.
And I think that's up to the parents to create that healthy competition in the kids. Because a lot of kids grow up in a family where maybe the parents, you know, compare the kids. And comparison will make one of the kids feel like they're not good enough. What you should instead do is obviously, you know, talk positively about the strengths of each of your children. And this way, they both feel complete. They both feel like they're doing what they should be doing and that they're on the right track. And if you don't, and I say this as well when it comes to giving somebody advice, if you just go in there and say, well, you're shit, no one's going to listen to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're going to be defensive straight away.
Absolutely.
But if you're like, you know what, you're very good at doing this, immediately they just open up and they're willing now to take on board anything that you say.
Any criticism that you might follow up with afterwards. Yeah,
that's right. And that's why I feel like kids or siblings that don't get on with each other have probably been subject to their parents comparing them. And that's why that insecurity builds up. Like, I want to beat you because you were always the preferred kid growing up. And do you know what I mean?
Absolutely, for sure.
And I know that you're a father yourself.
Yeah.
How has being a father changed you? Because they always say once you become a father, you're a different man.
Absolutely a different man. You know, I'm blessed to be a father of two young girls. The eldest, she's turning 4 in a couple of weeks, and the youngest, I think she's 16, 17 months old. So
that's incredible. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, my brother. So very blessed, you know, very grateful that I've been blessed with 2 young, beautiful girls. It definitely adds more hunger, you know, it puts more fire under you, because now you're not just trying to succeed for, you know, for yourself or for your other half. Now you've got dependents, you know, you've got children who depend on you, you know, they look up at you and their whole life depends on you, you know, without you, they wouldn't exist. You know, they not just struggle to exist. You know, a child cannot look after themselves. So you have to be switched on 24/7 as a parent, you know, as a caring parent as well, you know.
Does that make you reflect on when you were a child and the sacrifices your dad made as well?
Absolutely. You know, when I became a father, you have a newfound respect for your parents, you know. It's a difficult job. It's a very, very tough thing to do, to be a parent, you know. People talk about the lack of sleep, all of that stuff, you know, when you first have a child. But from the day that you have your first child, you know, your entire life changes, because you can no longer just make decisions for yourself. You have to take into consideration your entire family unit, you know. You get married, and, you know, two people come together, and, you know, they have a relationship, and you're still two separate entities. But when a child comes into that world, it fully connects you. And now you have to start making decisions for the family unit. You have to start taking into consideration your children. So you always have to be switched on 24/7. And yeah, it's definitely added to the hunger to want to achieve more now, not just for me and my wife, but for my children. But also it's you know, children can test your patience a hell of a lot as well, you know, especially young children. So it adds to the resilience side of things as well. And it's a relationship like no other. You know, having your children, it's a love you will never experience until you have kids. You know? Of course. It's a beautiful thing, man. Honestly, it's a beautiful thing. Very tough, but it's the rewards that come with it as well. Are equally as you know, massive.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, you know, a lot of young guys in today's age, they do want kids, but I think a lot of them are maybe intimidated by, you know, the idea of raising a child, the responsibilities attached to it. But I think it's important that more young men speak about the, you know, the advantages and, you know, how beautiful it actually is having a family, because now we live in a time where maybe it's not encouraged as much as it used to be, or people are staying away from it. So it's nice. I like seeing young people talk positively about having children and building a family. You know? I'm
a big advocate for getting married young and having a family young. I think we live in a society nowadays where it's all very self-indulgent. You know, I want to achieve what I want to achieve, and it's me. And I'm not saying to people don't have goals. You know, have goals. I promote that 100%. And, you know, you should be ambitious. You should want to achieve things. But in the same respect as well, you know, we only have a finite amount of time in this world. And, you know, the sooner you have a family, the better. You know, you want to be able to be there for your children in every shape or form. You know, fatherhood was easier when I was 26 than when I am now at 30 years old. And I feel like people push family like further down the line more so nowadays. But I'm definitely a big advocate for couples getting married young. But I think the issue nowadays is people struggle to commit. Commitment is...
Why do you think that is? Do you think it's because of social media, or do you
social media? Social media definitely plays a massive part in it. You know, this age that we grow up in now, where everything is at
unlimited options.
Unlimited options. So, you know, we live in a society where heads can be easily turned. You know, at the click of a finger. So I think social media plays a part in it. But I don't think, you know, when we were growing up, it was very much you know, you get married, you have children. That's what everyone did back in those days. That's what our parents' generation. That's what it was about. But now people, you know, they have so many options out there, and, you know, they struggle to commit. And I think you got to, you know, take responsibility at the end of the day. You've got to build that strength within yourself as a man.
I think, you know, I fully agree with that. I mean, they even did a study. I don't know who exactly did the study, but there was a business that had at the ground floor in fact, it was one jam company. So they create different types of jams, apricot, raspberry, whatever. And they had 2 stalls, and they conducted an experiment to see whether or not, if we have more choices, it would make our life easier or harder. And so on one of the stalls, they only gave the employees 3 jams, like apricot, raspberry, and strawberry. And on the other one, they gave them like a little set with about 20.
Yeah.
And then they basically told them, try it over this coming week, and then next week come back and tell us which one you prefer. Mm-hmm. And the group that only had the 3 options came back and said, that's my favorite one.
Yeah.
The group with 20 came back indecisive. The majority of them were like, I'm not sure. I like this one, but then this one's nice. And so that's the thing. I think with social media, because of the unlimited options, we're constantly comparing one person that we see with the next person. Mm-hmm. She's nice, but what if the next one has more? And then it just becomes a never-ending cycle.
So I have to be very careful with how I word this. Yeah. But listen, beauty with years, you know, it's going to fade. All right. And there's so many options out there for a man to choose from. You have to really take responsibility for not getting your head turned. Okay. You have to pick someone. You have to pick someone's character. Mm-hmm. You know, beauty, of course. A man has to be attracted to his wife.
Absolutely.
You know, first and foremost. But if she doesn't have a beautiful character, in 20 years' time, because that's the aim of marriage, by the way, it's a lifelong commitment. You know, in 20 years' time, when she gets older, but she still has that same beautiful character, you're still going to want to spend every day with her. You know,
of course.
But if you're picking these Instagram girls, you know, that beautify themselves and put themselves out there for the world to see, you know, you're not picking for longevity. And I think one point I'd like to make is that
absolutely.
On the commitment side of things, you know, it's funny, I see a lot of couples are happy to sign a 25-year mortgage together and buy a house together. But they're not happy to make that marriage commitment, which
that's interesting. Yeah,
it baffles me because, you know, if you're buying a house together, you know, you're committing for 25 to 30 years a lot of the time, right? So I don't know what it is about marriage nowadays that people are so unsure of. But you have to be decisive. You have to, you know, you have to make the decision.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there comes a point where, as a guy, you just gotta grow up, choose one, and just expect the best.
100%. Yeah. And, you know, again, in this throwaway society, it's not just in terms of relationships, but everything we have, we can just get new. You know, the next iPhone comes out next year. You know, everything is just new. In this throwaway society, you know, we're so used to when something doesn't feel right anymore, we just sack it off and you know, buy the newest thing. Things get tough, things get hard. In a marriage, you know, you will come across difficulties at times, but the idea is you work through it together. Mm-hmm. And again, it builds on that resilience as well. And I'm sure we'll touch on that in other walks of life as well. But absolutely, you know, it's not going to be easy. You have to work through things together, and communication is 100% key.
I was going to ask you, what qualities do you believe are necessary for I don't want to say the survival of a relationship, because that sounds like you're just hanging on, but as in for a relationship to thrive for many decades,
and to flourish. You have to, again, you got to be very careful when you're talking about relationships, right? Communication is 100% key. And I think, you know, I've never really been one to bottle my emotions and hold things in. I wear my heart on my sleeve, you know, as the old cliche goes. And I think, not to delve too deep into my marriage, but myself and my wife, we communicate very well. And, you know, we're able to talk things through. And the advice that I'd give to people is, you know, conversations can be difficult at times. They can be tough. But but you're going to have that conversation at some point, right?
Yeah.
I would say as well, another thing, and I think this is one thing that I've learned over the years, is pick and choose when to have the discussions as well. You know, if you're in a highly emotional environment, it's not the best time to start talking about things, right? One thing I'm quite good at, and this isn't just with my wife, but with you know, other relationships that I have as well, is if I don't like how the conversation's going, I take myself out of that situation. That's, you know, let's have this conversation later when things have tapered down a bit, and you know, and the emotion is taken out of the situation a little bit, and then we can have a level-headed conversation about things and talk about things like adults. So sometimes it does take, you know, you stepping away from the situation to then come back and have that conversation properly. But top of the list, absolute top of the list, communication is key. You have to, you know, talk to each other. You have to let each other know, you know, how you're feeling, how things are going. So yeah, definitely communication.
Yeah, I once was listening to this relationship podcast, and I don't remember who the guy was, but he was saying that it's also a good activity as a couple to once a week just sort of check up on how they feel things are going. You know, not a case of like, you know, just being like, hey, do you still want to be married? But it's like,
no.
It's a case of, you know, how you feeling? Is there any way I can show up for you better? Because I was actually saying this to a friend recently. You know, the whole love languages thing is something that you come to learn as a guy, usually by force, because you're like, why does she not want to, you know, you get frustrated. And then you read up on these things, and then you stumble upon an article maybe online. You're like, oh, love languages, that's interesting. And I think a lot of us guys, especially, we expect to receive the love the way we give it. You know, you're like, well, this is how I like to be loved. Why doesn't she like it this way? You know, but then you obviously have to, as you said, communicate with your partner about, you know, not only what's upsetting them, but also what they like as well.
100%.
What they want from you.
You know, it's a long road, marriage. It's a lifetime commitment. So you have to be dialed into each other, and you have to know, you know, likes, pet hates, all of that stuff, you know. So communication is 100% the most vital part of the relationship. And it's funny you say about, you know, checking in on each other. My wife the other day, she turned around to me, she said, you know, how are you doing? How's things? Yeah. And I kind of turned and looked at her and I said, you know, all is well, all's good. And she said to me, you know, you never seem to be stressed out by things. Yeah. You never show your levels of stress. And I think, you know, I'm not trying to blow my own trumpet or anything, but I think an old school value for men is, you know, keeping the lid on the situation and not, you know, blowing up and allowing, you know, your emotions to come, you know, to the outside, to the exterior. And again, that's not to say about bottling up your emotions, because I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about, you know, as the husband, you know, as I'm a very old school, old fashioned gentleman. Yeah. As the husband, as the head of your house, if you will. Yeah. You have to keep a lid on things. Right. Because at the end of the day, the buck has to stop somewhere. And as a man, the buck stops with you, right? Okay?
There's an expectation.
There is an expectation. You know, if the house gets broken into, I'm not sending my wife downstairs with a baseball bat to deal with the intruder, right? You're the guy, okay? If something goes wrong in the house, you're, you know, 9 times out of 10, you're the guy that's dealing with it, okay? So I still like to apply these old school values in the house, and, you know, not to blow up and show my emotion. And life gets tough. Life gets very difficult as a man. And we're going down this road right now. Okay. Life is tough. As a man in today's society, life is difficult. Okay. A lot of men can get lonely, you know. All of us have times where it's just us on this road, you know. And we have a thing as guys that we don't talk to other guys about how we feel, and, you know, we just ride things out, and, you know, so it can get very lonely. It's a very lonely road as a man.
And, it's an interesting thing that you just brought that up, actually, because, I'm with you 100% on the whole, be a man, lead, right? Your wife is expecting you to make the tough decisions. It doesn't mean you don't factor in her opinions and her thoughts, but you can't be an emotional wreck. I talk about this in my videos all the time, You can't let the little trivial things cause you to basically break down. There are certain events in your life where you will break down, such as the loss of a loved one, or maybe you built a business and you went bankrupt. In that moment, it's understandable that you'll want to tear up, and maybe that's the way you vent. That's the way you release your frustration. However, I also do believe that a lot of guys are overly emotional.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's why a lot of women today will say things like, I just want a man that lets me be free and to think about whatever I want to think about. I don't want to think about the tough decisions and the finances. And, I'm sure you're the same as me, where we as men want to provide for our wives completely. We want to create an environment that's, safe in many ways, emotionally safe, financially safe, because we don't want them to stress, really. I think that's the thing. As a guy, you should be embracing that burden of performance, as they like to say.
Embracing that role, it's and I think I have to absolutely give my wife her dues here. The journey that I'm on at the moment, the path that I'm on, I'm self-employed. I work in partnership with my brother, but along the road there's been some rocky roads, some difficult times. And my wife, and this is why you have to choose very carefully, gentlemen. You have to
Listen
choose,
up, fellas.
you have to choose very carefully, because it will get difficult at times. If you're pursuing something, if you're working a job, whatever, you might get let go from a job, and then you find yourself in a situation where it's like, I'm in the brown stuff here. You have to have a woman who's by your side through thick and thin, and I got married at the tender age of 22 years old.
That's incredible.
Right? So I wasn't in an established job at the time. I mean, I was working a job, but it wasn't where I wanted to be. I was working towards, I hadn't even graduated from uni, or I think I just graduated from uni. So my wife wasn't marrying a completed,
finished product.
Finished product. She married a work in progress. But we've built this together, and I'm quite that's one thing I'm very proud of my marriage, is that I feel like we did this together. So you have to choose a woman who's down in the good and the bad, because sometimes life gets difficult. If we rewind back to the pandemic, I had a business with my brother, which when we went into lockdown, it shut down, doors shut down, and we went from business was booming. I was cashing checks that I've never seen before in my life. Okay. We were doing very well, thank God. And then COVID came along, and, it was the biggest curveball in the world, because you're never expecting the whole world to shut down. Nobody expected that. Right. Yeah. And it got tough. We went from having a great income to, right, okay, I've got to think about how I'm spending those checks that I was before. And, we were getting nice new suits and et cetera, and things were good to, right, okay, now I need to think about it. And, thank God I've got a wife who, who's been there from day one for me. And we were ready for it. And since that business has gone to one side, me and my brother, we reevaluated the situation. We started a new venture, and that's been over 2 years in the making. And again, if it wasn't for having a strong partner, to help me along the way, sometimes to pick you up when you are a bit down, I don't think I would be in the situation today. So you have to pick a woman who is there for you, through
absolutely.
thick and thin, And I think, again, in this throwaway society, it's a lot more difficult to to find that woman. So gentlemen, when you do come across her, you know, put a ring on it.
Don't mess about.
100% commit. Commit 100%.
You know, I speak about this a lot on my channel, actually. I'm an optimist. And I see a lot of YouTube videos from a lot of these men's self-help channels, and it's all scaremongering. Oh, no, these hoes are out to get you, you know. They all want your money. And I disagree with that. I think, you know, the average girl in today's age isn't looking for a dude who is loaded. There are going to be some, of course, of course. However, the dudes that are worrying about that don't have money, you know, for her to dig. You know, they're like, oh, she's a gold digger. Bro, you know, with all due respect, you don't have anything. And so this is the thing. So I always tell guys, you know, you're worrying about the wrong thing. You know, if she is caring, if she is kind, if you see that she's dependable, if you see that, you know, she treats her family with respect and she displays all of those good qualities, you know, I'm a reasonable guy. I don't have a list of 1,001 things that I expect from a woman. As long as those main things and the core values are met, you know, then I'm a happy guy. Absolutely. You know, and this is why I tell guys, you know, don't be going out there expecting perfection, because you're not perfect. Yeah.
And you're never going to find perfection, by the way. Yeah. You're absolutely, you know, there's, like we said before, there are so many options out there. If you keep looking and keep looking and keep looking, you know, you might convince yourself that you found better, and you found better again, and you found better again. But I think the beauty of a marriage as well is that when you do get married, you build something that's just for the two of you, you know, and it's a journey you go on together. And it's a wild journey, honestly. I laugh because, you know, it's been 8 years that we've been married.
That's incredible.
And you know, we continue to build year on year.
It's nice because, you know, you went from being the 22-year-old young kid essentially to developing into the man that you are today.
Absolutely.
So, the journey.
Absolutely. It's a journey that you go on together, and I think you know, you learn more about yourself, you learn more about your other half. But it's beautiful because every year, you know, when you add kids into the situation, you add different, you know, life throws different curveballs at you and how you deal with it. I'm a very blessed man, honestly. Thank God, I'm very, very, very blessed.
And that's incredible to hear. And, you know, I just want to add as well, you know, talking about how you come to understand each other better over the years. There's a quote that I heard recently, which goes along the lines of, compatibility is an achievement of love, not something that you need from the get-go.
100%.
And I was like, wow, that's an interesting take.
100%. I think when you're looking, you know, for another half, you're always going to want to be compatible on certain things, you know, but compatibility is a molding thing. It's a forever changing thing, you know. I'm not the same guy that I was when I was 22 years old. Completely different person now. Learned a hell of a lot about myself, but about the world as well, you know. And I think you do have to, like, part of your responsibility as a husband is taking a step back and figuring out, you know, the windy road and how it's changed you as well, because marriage does change you, you know, 100%, and it should change you, by the way, because of the extra responsibility that you take on from that point in time.
What would you say to a young guy who has a good woman in his life and is thinking of marrying her, but is worried because he feels like he's too young?
Marry her. Yeah. Marry her, 100%.
But what if he tells you, I'm too young though?
Look, I think, again, this is another product of society today that, you know, you have to be 30 plus with, you have to have a house, you have to have a car, you have to have a good salary, you have to have all of these things before you can even think about getting married. I say, get married and build that lifestyle with your other half, you know, because, you know, you get your house, you get your car, you get all of these things, and then you have to find a woman that fits into that lifestyle. Whereas you find the right woman and then you build that life with her at the end of the day. And I'm not hearing any of that stuff about I'm too young, I'm not ready. You know, as men, as women as well, women have criteria when they're looking for another half, you know. Does she fit the criteria? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. another question that, because over the years I've had guys come up to me and say, listen, Anas, you got married young. I'm thinking about, you know, proposing, etc., blah, blah, blah. What would you say? Blah, blah. I say to people, can you see this woman as the mother of your future children? Can you imagine her as the mother of your future children? Does she have those qualities that you feel like she would be able to bring up your children? Because at the end of the day, that's part of marriage. You need to factor that in.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
If the answer is yes, marry her. Like, commit, decide. Like, you know, again, men today, too flippy flappy.
Yeah.
Too let me go and make a list of pros and cons and and you know, that sort of thing. Like, I'm not saying make impulsive decisions out here. Of course, you have to think things through. But at the end of the day, if everything is pointing you to walk through that door, then walk through that door. Don't wait for somebody to take your hand and you know, and walk you through that door.
Yeah, 100%. I think, you know, the whole concept of paralysis by analysis, you know, you're expecting something to be perfect. And as a result, you keep delaying and delaying, and you miss out on a lot of good opportunities, whether it's women or potentially business opportunities, which we'll come to dive into in a sec as well. So I think there comes a point where you just have to make a decision, because as I was saying, indecision is the thief of opportunity.
Yes, absolutely.
And, you know, of course, don't be impulsive, as you said. But, you know, if something makes sense, well, okay, you know, I'll go for it.
I'm always like, I'm an advocate of what's the worst that can happen, right?
Yeah.
You know, like, think worst case scenario, yeah? And in a marriage, what's the worst thing that can happen? You get divorced, right? That's the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
The mantra that I live by is, and, you know, my house is burning down. Okay. And, like, you know, I've just been let go from my job. Yeah. And, okay, like, life will always throw these difficult things at you.
Yeah.
Like, you can either be a victim of those difficult situations, or, okay, I'll take it in my stride and we go again, you know? Not to say that you should be thinking about marriage with divorce in the back of your mind.
You can't be planning for that.
Exactly. But I always try and think in every scenario, this isn't just specifically for relationships, right? What's the worst case scenario here? Like, what is the worst thing that could happen in this situation? And 9 times out of 10, it's not that bad.
It's not as big, is it?
It's really not that bad. When you put things into perspective, it's really not that bad. It's definitely something, you know, I've heard you use this phrase many a times, and I live by this phrase. You've survived 100% of the bad days that you've experienced so far, right? So I always remind myself, if I am going through a tough time or a struggle, I've been through worse, you know, I've been through bad times. This is another bad day, and it's all good. You know, we take it in our stride, we reset and we go again. And
100%, you know, and I fully believe that we suffer more in imagination than we do in reality. And that's a quote from Seneca. And, you know, that's so true. We create these worst case scenarios in our mind before we've even taken the first step. You know, look, if you want to worry, but at least get something going first.
Yeah, absolutely. You absolutely. Know? I think doing is the major roadblock for people. You know, you want to write a list and prepare on how to do something. You know, you want to think, you want to plan, you want to just do it. Like, just get into it, just do it, you know, like, and, you know, with regards to some of the stuff that I'm doing at the moment, I think some of your material was actually quite a catalyst for me to...
I was actually going to dive into that right next, because obviously, you know, the reason why I wanted to get Anas on the podcast is at the moment, he's crushing it when it comes to his content creation.
Appreciate it, man.
You know, you're building the brand Grassroots. You know, tell everybody what Grassroots is all about. And
so, Grassroots football. That's what I'm into. That's the content that I'm pushing out at the moment. And essentially, so I play football at, you know, a local amateur level. We've got the footballing pyramid, and we're here. You know. But I think the last couple of years that I've been playing football, I haven't really enjoyed it as much as, you know, I feel like I should. But I love football. I love playing football.
What got you into it?
what got me into.
Because I remember, because me and Anas go way back,
Way
2
back.
decades or
Way
something, right?
back.
I swear
Yes,
to God,
yes.
it's been so long, and this guy's been a baller ever since.
We use that term loosely, by the way. Okay, some would agree, some may disagree.
Honestly,
but,
check him out on Instagram. What's your Instagram handle?
It's grassroots.ab30.
We'll make sure to link it in the description. But
Appreciate that.
He can show you better than he can tell you. Just watch his videos.
There are some naughty clips on there, but I also highlight the bad as well. Like, I'm not afraid to show that as well. Like, none of us are perfect at all.
Mm-hmm.
But with regards to what I'm doing on social media at the moment, it specifically came from a place where I've been playing football, 11-a-side football, competitive football for the best part of 15 years now. And I used to really enjoy it when I was really fit and sharp when I was younger. And over the last couple of years, last maybe 5 or 6 years, I haven't enjoyed it as much. And I always knew in the back of my mind, it's because I'm not as fit as I should be for this sport. Like I wasn't showing the game the respect that it needed. I'd been going to the gym, but I'd been training more so like a bodybuilder, push, pull legs, bro split, that sort of thing. And that's great if that's what you're going for. If you want to, stack on muscle, look aesthetically good, fantastic. I'm not shying anyone or pushing anyone away from the gym. But if you want to be good on the pitch, it can be counterproductive to train in the gym, like a bodybuilder.
That was actually going to be my question, because I know that you've made a significant adjustment to the way that you train in the gym. Mm-hmm. What's the biggest change from before? So you were doing push-pull legs before. How has that changed?
So my focus in the gym before used to be, right, how big can I get? How much can I bulk? And what's the heaviest weight that I can press? So the main compound lifts that I was focusing on were my squat, deadlift, and bench press. And like the majority of men that go to the gym, the bench press was top of the list, right? Yeah. But the way that it's changed is that focus has gone out the window entirely. So, okay, if you can bench 110 kg, that's great. That gives you strength. Does that strength directly transfer onto the football pitch? No, because well, for starters, you're not pushing people. So I started to look into how to train specifically like footballers, but again, I'm not out here trying to advocate to train like a professional footballer. The idea behind the Grassroots page is that we play football at an amateur level, but the content that's currently out there is more geared towards elite level players, academy players. Are you trying to become a professional footballer? Are you trying to break through an academy? But Grassroots is quite neglected as a field in football, and we make up the majority, by the way. We're at the base of the pyramid, so only the top 0.1% of players make it to Premier League or sign professional contracts. So the majority are playing at the base of the pyramid. So how can I train to be the best version of myself on the football pitch and achieve the best results? So I started putting those big weights to the side. I still use weights in my training, but it's more explosive weight training, a lot more focus on higher intensity. How can I push these weights that it's going to help me directly on the football pitch, and that sort of thing. So I'm trying to push training advice out there, but I also want to take the angle of advising players on certain things in what I like to call the beautiful grassroots game. All right, grassroots football is slightly different. It's a hell of a lot different to the professional game, but it's got some beautiful things about it that you don't learn until you've been playing in that game for a while. So I want to give advice to young players who are making their way up in grassroots teams. People that are moving over to new teams, how to interact with your coaches, your teammates. So I try to give like little golden nuggets of advice to players in the sport.
Like a whole 360 approach.
Yeah, and I think, it's still very early days in this whole content creation thing. I've always enjoyed creating content. So
because I remember many years ago you were making videos. And
I
then
was,
you stopped.
yeah. So long ago I was a personal trainer, and I got onto Instagram, and I grew my account quite rapidly. I was training with some guys in North London who have gone on to do some, become some big names in the industry and do some successful things. But when it came to personal training, it wasn't for me. The sector, it just wasn't for me, if I'm honest with you. And I think because I've always enjoyed football coaching, as opposed to coaching in the gym per se. My favorite clients back in the day when I was a personal trainer were the guys that were training for football, because it's like, okay, I'm geared for this. This is what I enjoy. This is what I look forward to. So I used to do content creation back in the personal training days, and I enjoy making content.
What did you enjoy the most about it? Because the content creation game isn't for everybody.
Absolutely.
But what drew you into it?
I think making things that people relate to. Making pieces of content, putting content out there that people can relate to. But also one thing that I really enjoy, and that I'm enjoying more so nowadays, is putting pieces of content out there that people are benefiting from, So whether it's TikTok, Instagram, when people engage and they ask me, right, but how many sets do I do this for? And, so I'm thinking, okay, this person's asking me for advice, they're valuing what I'm putting out there. And I know there's a chance that they might try this drill out, or they might try this exercise out this week. And it's all about impact. It's all about, making an impact. I said it before earlier, we're on this earth for a finite amount of time. Do we just want to be, spectators and just watch the world go by? Or do we want to positively impact other people's lives,
Absolutely. I would have to agree with that completely. I mean, the thing that drew me into content creation was obviously the impact aspect of things. When someone benefits from something that you've said, and I think a lot of the times as content creators, we underestimate how many people are watching our videos. And obviously as you continue to grow your sort of subscriber base, your follower base, you get more and more messages from people, and they all, the majority I would say, are very positive, and they're quite detailed as well. A lot of them, they'll get into their life and how, you specifically said something in one video that helped them. So the impact is incredible, and, it lives on. Obviously, that piece of content stays on the internet forever.
Yeah, and that can be a blessing and a curse at the end of the day, so that's part of the game. That is part of the game. But I think as well, the difference between a successful content creator, and it's not to say that I'm there, I'm
well on your way though.
I'm trying. Okay. But I think it's very easy to get discouraged in this game. Right. So you put a lot of time into what you're pushing out. You post it on whatever platform it may be, thinking, you know what, this was bang on the money, and this is gonna pop, and it's gonna do, and then it doesn't get the response or the engagement that you're expecting. It's easy to get disheartened in this game. It's very easy to get disheartened in this game. But just like everything else in life, it's all about consistency. Turning up every single day. And this applies to social media, content creation. It applies to, business ventures. It applies to absolutely everything, turning up every single day, putting the time into whatever project it is you're working on, even on the days where you don't want to turn up. And those are the most important days to turn up on, because those are the days that can kill your project entirely, essentially.
100%,
and there's peaks and troughs in everything. I'm sure you'll agree.
Absolutely.
There's tough times in all these games. And you just got to ride it out.
100%. I mean, that's why I believe it's very important to get clear on why you're doing it.
100%.
Because if you're just doing it for views and money, you're going to burn out and you're going to crash and you're going to quit. Because the reality is you ain't going to see any views or any money for a while.
Yeah, for a long time.
And that long time, that, I mean, it's like you're walking through a desert and, you know, there's no sight of water anywhere. I mean, most people would just give up, you know, but, you know, the most important thing is that you know why you're doing it. You know, there's a great book called Start with Why by Simon Sinek, and he talks about it. You know, if companies, if individuals get clear on the why, they'll go a lot further. And there's a saying, if you don't have a reason, you're only here for a season. And I fully believe in that. I mean, when I started making videos, and look, my audience is continuing to grow, and of course we have big goals, but there were many people that started around the same time as me that stopped within about a month or two. Because, you know, like you said, you look at the view count in the early stages and you're like, well, I'm putting all this effort.
Putting in hours of work into this, and it's not
translating.
It's not translating, and it's not going to translate for a very long time. And there are still times now where it doesn't translate, you know, and whatever that reason may be, you know, but you have to push through the tougher days, right? And going back to the whole why part, you know, whatever you're doing, it's got to be something you're passionate about, something that you enjoy. Because, you know, the old saying goes, the man who enjoys walking is going to walk further than the man who, you know, loves the destination. The man who loves walking is going to walk further than the man who loves the destination.
That's powerful.
If you're worried, or if your sole focus is the end goal, you know, is the big pot of gold and the view account or the successful business or whatever it is, you're going to find it very difficult to pick yourself up on those difficult days and drag yourself through. But if you love what you're doing, if you genuinely enjoy what you're doing, so what, you post something and it doesn't get the response that you wanted, you know, I still enjoyed the process, you know, so, and you keep enjoying the process, you keep turning up, you keep, you know, the resilience is a must. Like, you have to keep going. And like you said, I've seen some great ideas, some fantastic content creators. And then I go onto their page and I'm like, you haven't posted since like 2021. What a shame, because this was actually I thought this was foolproof. But, you know, 9 times out of 10, if you just keep going, you just keep pushing, and you refuse to quit, you know, you're going to get there. You know?
I always say it's inevitable. I mean, that's one of my favorite words, you know, because it's impossible to not get what you want if you just keep bloody showing up.
100%.
I mean, look, there's obviously taken productive action. You know, the whole saying, work smart, not hard. You know, I believe you got to marry the two together.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you know, understand where, you know, the work translates into results. Because sometimes you find yourself doing something and there's not much of a result. And I do that all the time with content creation. You probably do the same.
Yeah.
You notice that this color of caption gets more views, or this hashtag or whatever. So, you know, obviously keep track of the metrics and what you can do to improve. But if you just keep doing it every single day, keep refining the process, and you never give up, at some point, I mean, there's a famous line from Jay-Z where he says, you only have to be right once.
Yep, 100%.
You know, once you take off, everything just starts working out.
You're well on your way, you know.
And that's when you're going to hear the, lucky guy.
Yeah. Oh, he got so lucky. And it's like, but those hundreds and hundreds of days where, you know, the luck didn't, you know, you make your own luck at the end of the day. So, okay, I got lucky, if you will, on that occasion, but that's only because I kept showing up. You know, day after day after day after day.
You created that luck through sheer persistence. That's what it is.
100%.
Enormous amount of action behind you, because, you know, if you never did anything and then the one time you did something you became really successful, then I would probably say you're lucky. You know what I mean?
100%.
But, you know, if there's been thousands of videos and then one of them kicks off, well then, you know, that was well deserved, because
absolutely
you've backed it up through sheer effort. You know, and I want to touch on something as well with the grassroots. What would you say in terms of football is the most underappreciated position?
Whoa.
I know this is a bit of a hot one, this one.
Underappreciated position.
Because obviously in games, when you watch professional football, it's always the strikers that get the glory. Absolutely. He scored. And obviously they have an important role. However, I feel like maybe there's certain positions on the football field that aren't really talked about. So I just wanted to see what your take on that is, really.
Straight little curveball there. I would say, and this is from, you know, dipping into this position here and there, in central midfield, maybe a deep line midfielder, or maybe even, you know, a centre mid that's slightly higher up the pitch, you put a hell of a lot of miles in. You know, you're constantly working box to box midfielders. You're up and down, breaking up play on one side, and then playing it out on the other side. And your metrics will never be that of the striker or the winger that you're feeding the ball to. Yeah. So you won't get recognised as much as those players. And it's funny because I sometimes play 7-a-side football with this group on Tuesday nights, and they take it quite seriously. They got a little league table, and the goals are counted and all of that stuff. And then players are asked for their man of the match at the end of the games, and 9 times out of 10 it's the guy who scored the most amount of goals. And he could have dropped a stinker, but he scored 3 or 4 goals that game, so he's got to be the man of the match. Whereas the guy in the middle of the park who's worked back to help his defense, then worked up to help the attack as well. Central midfield was a position I never used to go near, but I think the older I got and the more I learnt about the game, the more I'm able to find my way a little in that position. Definitely an underappreciated position.
I'd have to agree with that, because you're basically the engine on the football pitch.
Absolutely.
Not only do you supply the strikers, but you have to cover for the defenders when they make a mistake as well. So you're doing the 2 roles basically.
For sure. Another difficult position as well, by the way, goalkeeper. If I make a mistake as a striker, I lose the ball. The opposition's defense, takes it, makes a few passes. So what? Yeah. Even as a midfielder, I've still got the last line of defense. If you make that mistake as a goalkeeper, 9 times out of 10 it results in a goal, and that's obviously the most important thing you play football for, to score goals. So shout out to the goalkeepers as well, because that is a tough position.
Well, tough as a United fan, obviously we have a new keeper. So we have a new keeper who's taken some time to settle in, shall we say. He, even today actually in the game that we won just about 2-1, he was at fault for conceding that goal, to be fair. And towards the end of the game, when McTominay scored the winner, he actually ran across from where he was all the way to celebrate with McTominay for saving his ass and saving his job, basically. Because I remember when De Gea was playing for Man United, and he used to get stick all the time.
Absolutely. The pressure. It's a high pressure situation. You make one small mistake and the ball's in the back of the net. So it's tough for the keepers, and it's a confidence position as well. If you're low on confidence, you don't really have an opportunity to find that confidence in the game. But on the pitch, on the field, you get a couple of passes under your feet, you get the rhythm going. Even if you're low in confidence in that particular period in time, like throughout the season, you can find your confidence, find your rhythm on the pitch. But as a keeper, when you're presented with a shot coming your way or the attack coming your way, it's do or die every single time. If you do, you save, great. If you don't, it's in the back of the net. So
at the moment, your position is it more of a central defensive midfielder or central attacking?
Central attacking midfielder. So I play Saturday football and I play Sunday football. So God bless my wife for putting up with it, I tell you. So I play Saturday afternoons, and I tend to play more of an attacking role on Saturday afternoons, and then Sunday mornings, when I haven't got as much in the legs from the day before, I tend to play a bit more of a deeper lying role. And that's only something I've done in the last season or two, to be honest with you. But the pace of the game on a Sunday is a bit slower.
Everyone's hungover,
everyone's hungover and still half cut from the night before. But you get a bit more time on the ball, a bit more, opportunity to make a better decision.
What would you say? Morning. What would you say are the 3 most important qualities to have for somebody who plays in your position?
I think at this particular level, and this goes across the park, to be honest with you, but I will always put fitness at the top of the pack. You have to be, as like a number 10, an attacking midfielder, you have to essentially be the fittest player on the pitch, because you have to be available for the ball to be played through you at at all times. You have to be that option. So whether or not your centre backs have played the ball across and then they've played it back again, you've got to be picking up pockets, appearing in little pockets of space across the pitch where somebody's not marking you, so that you can pick the ball up, shift it off to someone else. So fitness is definitely number one. You've got to have the ability to pass, and you've got to have a range of passing on you as well. So nice little short through balls, and you've also got to have a nice little long ball in you too. Number three. I mean, I didn't showcase this well today. I'm sure my teammates will agree. But you've also got to have the ability to finish as well. Because as an attacking midfielder, you have to contribute not only with the build-up in play, but also putting the ball in the back of the net. One of my favourite players for doing it at the moment for my team, Arsenal, Martin Odegaard. He comes up with the goals. And not only has he got that, beautiful, intricate play and pinging the ball left, right and centre, but he's got the ability to put the ball in the back of the net. So,
I also think that being in the right place at the right time is a skill.
It's a skill, something that you can work on, but I find with some players, they've just got it. They just know where to be every time. Like if we're talking about a professional situation, professional setting, Erling Haaland for Man City, he just seems to know where the ball is going to be every single time. And again, that's probably through hours of drilling and hours of working at it. So
it's crazy because he's a young player. Like you would obviously expect that from a 30-year-old striker. But I think he's like 21.
21, 22 or something like that. I think
it's in him. Like he just knows where to be.
Instinctive. Do you know what I mean? So, it's a skill that you can work on. But like some things, you've just got it, and I think that's a knack to have. But it's not to say that you can't drill these things and you can't work on them. Like the age-old football debate. Ronaldo or Messi?
Who's
the greatest of all time, right? For me, 100 times out of 100, I'm picking Ronaldo. Okay, is he more talented? No. Is he more skillful? Has he got better attributes, etc., etc.? No. And that's the reason, funnily enough, why I choose him as the greatest of all time, because the fact that he's brought himself up to Messi's skill level, to be in that conversation is through pure hard work and determination, and the longevity of it as well, the consistency of it too. The numbers he's posted is just absolutely ridiculous. And I know people will say about World Cup, this, that, whatever. But I just think he's had to work that hard to be, in that debate. So, the age-old saying...
Would you say that you've come to appreciate him more as a football player as you've sort of worked on your fitness aspect of things as well? Because you've come to appreciate that a lot more.
Absolutely. Because... And football players or, grassroots, whatever level you play at, will appreciate this. There's a difference between being fit and being match fit, right? So there's a difference between, I go for the gym and I do a 5K and all of that stuff. And there's a difference between I've got 90 minutes plus added time in my legs and I can, keep it. And to be at that level, that he has been at for the last 20 odd years of the game, there's times I can't be bothered to train, I can't be bothered to put the effort in. And sometimes you might not turn up for a session or something like that. But his mentality is just, no, I turn up every single day. I put that effort in. Doesn't matter how old he is, by the way.
How old is he now? 39, 38?
38, 39, I think. And it's just incredible. And I don't want to hear people about saying Saudi League and all of that stuff, okay? He's posting the numbers, even in that United side where people touted him as the problem. Yeah,
he was insane.
He was coming up clutch, hat-trick against Spurs.
I remember that one.
Scoring in the Champions League. And the goals that hat-trick that he scored against Spurs, the volley.
Madness, yeah.
This is the thing as well. Greatest. I remember these goals. Like, you can pluck them out of your head as well. Memorable moments.
I would say he's probably the greatest header of the ball of all time.
Yeah, absolutely. Without dispute. And the thing is, again, was he the best at that naturally when he was, 18, 19, 20, coming up in the the early days at Man United.
No.
Absolutely not. But it was a skill that he worked on, and he sort of began to master at Real Madrid. And then at Juventus, you've got that famous header that he scored where he leapt however high off the ground. So, he's just testament to the fact that hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
Yeah.
So many players have come and gone in this era of football. And Ronaldo's just been at the top. And then you've got the player that they'll tout as the next Messi or the next Ronaldo. And he comes along for a season or 2 seasons or 3 seasons. And then he withers away because he hasn't got that, that elite mentality, that elite mindset.
That is true. I think also knowing how to evolve your game to support the team is a tremendous skill. And Ronaldo is probably the best example of it because, as you mentioned, when he first came into that United squad at 18 years old, I remember seeing some of the highlights of him dribbling all over the place, losing the ball. A lot of the players like Keane would get frustrated with him, Scholes. But he was so aware of his game that he started to develop his game IQ a lot differently. And, obviously at Real Madrid was probably the best example of how he put down steroids.
Yeah.
He went from being, to be fair, I mean, I actually want to ask you this. Do you prefer the silky smooth United Ronaldo 2008, 2007?
Oh, that's another thing that, that you've got to love about the guy is that he has evolved as a player, and there's been so many different versions of him. There's been the pure goal scoring machine at Real Madrid when he was playing through the middle of the park, up top as a number 9, and he was just scoring goals for fun, just putting it in the back of the net, I think some of the things that he did in United in his Ballon d'Or winning season, for the age he was just insane. And the trickery and the quick feet and all of that. But I think the older that he got, he learned to sort of cut the excess, cut the fat. Let's just get straight to the main dish, basically. And I think what he became at Madrid and the numbers he was posting, I think he had more than 1 goal a game.
Yeah, he ended up, I think, with 450 goals and 420 appearances, I think.
Insane.
In what is it, 9 seasons or something?
Insane. That is insane. And when you think about players that they compare, this both Ronaldo and Messi, to be fair, from the numbers that they've posted, a player would have to score 50 goals a season for the next however many seasons.
17 seasons.
Yeah. And it's just crazy. It's crazy. No.
Yeah, I mean, the consistency and the duration of that high performance is what makes those two incredible. I mean, how could you sustain that performance for almost 2 decades?
Yeah, it's
mad.
It's incredible, and it's an elite level mentality. Very few have that degree of mentality and mindset of working through, because again, it hasn't been sunshine and roses for these guys all the way. Both have experienced injuries. All of those things, you can allow things to infiltrate you and drag you down, or you can say, no, I'm not going to allow that to get on top of me, and I'm going to work through that. And that's nowadays as well. As men, we're told, it's okay to be sad, and it's okay to let these things in. And I'm not saying don't experience emotion. I'm not saying be cold-hearted and etc. But I feel like we've taken it to the opposite extreme. Really feel that and everything,
sit there and just
exactly. And it's like you're allowing things to consume you and prevent you from moving forward. Whereas if I say, no, I'm not going to allow this to faze me. No, I'm not going to allow this to faze me. It's not bottling up emotions. It's not, it's just, again, going back to what I said earlier, things could be a hell of a lot worse. It's not that bad. In the grand scheme of things, it's not that bad. So let's just push it to one side and...
Well, yeah, I mean, I think one of the best quotes I've ever heard is recycle your pain. When you're experiencing something really bad, take that energy and use it to transform yourself for the better. Whether it's a breakup, whether it's, for example, you're an athlete, you injured yourself, you're out for a year. You got to somehow take that frustration and do something with it. Absolutely. Otherwise, it will paralyze you.
Absolutely.
It will keep you down, and like you said, now I feel like a lot of guys unjustly bathe in their emotions almost.
Yeah.
You know, they enjoy feeling sorry for themselves. And one of the things actually and this is a bit of a sort of side topic, but one of the things that I believe has affected men also is this, what I like to refer to as sad boy music.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what you listen to programs you. And, you know, look, I enjoyed my fair share of emotional songs over the years.
Yeah.
But then, you know, I think I had this reality check like 3 years ago. I was driving in my car, listening to to The Weeknd, and I think he had one lyric where he says, "I don't deserve someone loyal to me," and I was like, "What the fuck am I listening to?" You know, for a while I was like not in my head, and and then I was like, "What? I don't deserve someone loyal? Hell no!" And then I just changed the song straight away, and now I only listen to things that I believe will make me feel better. And look, you know, there are songs that some would say the emotional aspect of it is what is enjoyable, like the longing for somebody or whatever. But then there's songs that are just going to make you feel bad about yourself, and you were the one in the wrong. And, you know, it's always the love songs, you know. It's always the guy who made the mistake. You know, and now she's with someone else and she's happy, and, you know.
She's better off without me, all that stuff.
Honestly, it programs you. And I would say it's probably the same with, you know, what you watch on TV as well, this doom and gloom. Because I remember during COVID as well, you know, everything you saw on TV was just death and devastation and, oh my God, this is terrible. And, you know, if you allow that to consume you, I mean, you're finished.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. No. And if I'm honest, I try to keep all of these things to a minimal. Like I have my series that I indulge in from time to time. But I feel like if anything's preventing you from the main goal, you know, try and tone it down a little bit. Not to say don't you know, indulge from time to time, but I think, you know, if you've got a main focus, a main ambition that you're working towards, don't allow these things to become distractions and take you off that path, you know?
Absolutely. And on the football, actually going back to the football, I've got a few questions for you. I want to see what your answers are. I'm curious. The greatest Premier League player of the last 25 years, who would you say?
Thierry Henry.
Why?
Hands down. The guy could do everything with the football. Goal scoring machine, tick. Provider, one of the most unselfish strikers you will ever see. Robbed of a Ballon d'Or as well, where he scored so many goals and assisted, you know, so many goals in the Premier League campaign. And I can't remember who it was given to. The name will come back to me. And if it doesn't, somebody in the comments.
I know Torres won it one of the years, right? Fernando Torres.
I think Nedved was the player that won it when Thierry Henry should have won it that year, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. But he was just complete, and you know, he was just suave on the pitch.
He was silky.
He's silky. You know, he'd just flow, and he'd just glide past players, and he made it look easy. So he was the greatest Premier League player of all time, and I think my only gripe with him is that he didn't win the Champions League with Arsenal, and he deserved to, because he carried us on his back all the way to the final. That season when we lost against Barcelona in the final, and he really deserved it. He turned up to the Bernabeu, to Real Madrid, against stars like Ronaldo. We're talking R9 here.
Yeah.
And he just put on a masterclass and just glided past a few of their players and just slotted it into the back of the net for 1-0 there. But
he was deadly. He was a poacher.
He was everything. You know, he could head the ball. He could score goals from the outside of the box, pop up inside the box, carry the ball. Like, so for me, hands down, greatest of all time in the Premier League was Thierry Henry.
And then if you could follow that with two more, so to your top three. So Thierry Henry, who would be the next two?
Thierry Henry, I'm going to try and not let my Arsenal bias creep in here.
Yeah. I mean, there's a star-studded list here.
Definitely. I would have to say Thierry Henry, Wayne Rooney as well.
Glad you mentioned that.
Wayne Rooney, because he could have quite easily stayed as a number 9, throughout his career at Manchester United, racked in the goals, 30 league goals a season.
Yeah.
But he didn't, you know. He did what the team needed him to do, dropped back in a bit deeper, started playing deeper into midfield, still posted some crazy numbers from a slightly deeper position as well.
Yeah.
I think the way he, you know, burst onto the scene as a young player, and he played like a 30-year-old player.
He was a monster.
From such a young age. He was a beast, an absolute beast. And I think, again, you know, the fact that he stayed with United for such a long period of time, won so much with them, he's got to be another one.
You're number 3.
The third slot.
I'll give you some suggestions here.
Go for it.
Obviously, Alan Shearer.
Yeah.
You know, there's an argument for Harry Kane. There's an argument for Sergio Aguero.
I was thinking about Aguero before I said Rooney.
But then there's also the midfielders like Keane. There's also Vieira.
And you see what we were speaking about earlier, about look how my two choices so far are strikers. Why? Because they're the most memorable in terms of he scored the greatest goals. He scored the most amount of goals, you know. Some players that, you know what, for the sake of picking a midfielder, I am going to pick Kevin De Bruyne.
Interesting.
That's a little...
More of a modern footballer.
Yeah, 100%. His range of passing is...
It's incredible. There's that one video. You know, people make memes about it now. When your friend assists you at the club or something, and it's just like Kevin De Bruyne getting the pass.
Oh yeah. Crazy. And yeah, some of the assists that he's had have just been insane. But I think, again, chimes in with goals here and there, but he's just been so consistent as a midfielder. David Silva is, again, a great shout too. But yeah, if I'm going to put 3 names to it, we'll say Thierry Henry at the top, Wayne Rooney, and then Kevin De Bruyne.
Oh, that's a good top 3, I have to say. I mean, there are so many players you could name that just don't get enough recognition, really. I mean, for me, one of the players, and I'm a United fan, obviously, that I feel still today, when people talk about, doesn't get enough respect, is Paul Scholes.
Scholes.
His range of passing was, I mean, he could someone said, you know, Paul Scholes could find my dad with that pass, you know? I mean, the way he would just, from where the defenders are at the back, at the sort of back of the pitch, all the way to where the strikers are, I mean, he could get that diagonal pass, insane.
I mean, when you've got the likes of Xavi and Iniesta coming up through the Barcelona academy, and they've got Paul Scholes as an example, you know, they would talk about him as a player. You know, that's insane. You know, when you got the likes of Zinedine Zidane.
Oh, don't get us started.
My guy, Zizou. Talking about Paul Scholes and how much of a good player he is.
Yeah.
You know, you're talking about a player. I think, again, his kind of midfielder back in the day, it was more common to play like a 4-4-2 formation. So you've got 2 centre mids sort of side to side, as opposed to, it's common nowadays, the majority of teams play with 3 midfielders. So you have a really deep line midfielder, more of a box to box, and then an attacking midfielder. But I think in Paul Scholes' era, being a goal scoring midfielder wasn't as much of a thing. You know, you broke up play, you won those challenges in the middle of the park, and then you pinged it to the rest of your teammates to create and to score goals. It was only really when sort of Gerrard and Lampard came onto the scene where having that sort of attacking midfielder in the Premier League scoring X amount of goals in a season became a thing.
Gerrard or Lampard?
Oh, Lampard for me.
Yeah.
Lampard. He always knew. He had that knack of right place, right time. He knew, as in terms of goal scoring midfielder, he's always popping up in the box, scoring goals, you know, and again, the consistency, the longevity. Gerrard, I think his problem was the team that he played with.
Or was that slip against Chelsea?
That'll go down in history. That was his biggest
problem,
Yeah, but I think the fact that he wasn't always surrounded with players that, he had to be the player that was carrying everyone and pushing everyone. Whereas Lampard had the luxury of playing around some of the quality, you know?
I would argue that's what makes Gerrard better than Lampard.
It's a fair argument. It is definitely a fair argument. He had to be the leader. Whereas I think in Chelsea,
They had so many good players, didn't they?
and they had a handful of leaders as well on the pitch. Whereas Gerrard was the guy. You know, if you need that last minute screamer to win the game, it was Gerrard. You know? And he's putting his foot through it, and he's, you know, essentially like winning the game for Liverpool. But for me, it's got to be Lamps.
Okay, this question is gonna be an interesting one. Who is the bigger club, Chelsea or Arsenal?
There's
a lot of arguments here, back and forth.
I have this discussion with one friend, Scotty. He's a big Chelsea fan. Chelsea, over the last however many years, have achieved a lot more. But I think in terms of history, it's you know what, it's difficult. I don't know if I can actually say it with chest on camera, you know, documented. Look, I'm an Arsenal fan, okay, massive Arsenal fan. I just feel like what Chelsea have done in recent history maybe slightly
edges them
ever so slightly. In terms of global brand, global following, I think Arsenal knocks them out of the park. But I think in terms of, look, as a football team, what are you trying to do? You're trying to win. You're trying to trophies in the cabinet, and you're trying to be winners. And, you know, nobody remembers second place. Nobody remembers top four. You know, at the end of the day, they only remember who won the Premier League, who won the Champions League, who won the trophies at the end of the day. And Chelsea went through a bit of an unstoppable period under Jose Mourinho, specifically under Jose Mourinho. The guys are just a serial winner. One of my favourite.
Can I ask you that as the next question as well, actually? You know, who would you say is the greatest manager of all time?
Oof.
He's one of them for sure.
Definitely one of them. Definitely in the debate. Again, the Arsenal bias here is crazy. It's crazy. I would have to say, Sir Alex Ferguson.
I was waiting for you to say that.
Why
took you so long?
It's tough because, you know, people will talk about, but United were the dominant force. And I don't know if you've seen the David Beckham documentary on Netflix.
Saw snippets of it, not yet.
So I'm halfway through it. I haven't watched it entirely, but Sir Alex Ferguson, when he first came in, you know, Manchester United hadn't won a league title for however long. They hadn't won the Champions League since 58 or 68 or something like that, for a hell of a long time. He started off terribly. I think he had 3 seasons which were terrible, and then he just got, you know, got the identity of the club going. And then from when they started winning, they didn't stop winning until he left, you know. And I think that's testament to the man, that when you took him out of the club, it's almost like you took the club away. Because Manchester United, for however long, they just knew how to win. They just knew how to win all the time. They used to play ugly sometimes, they would win. They'd play beautiful football, they would win. You know, you would expect a W from Manchester United back in the day when Sir Alex Ferguson was on the touchline, chewing his gum ferociously. Red as hell, exactly. But because he had an expectation. You know, you wouldn't have any of this whole player backlash thing that you have now. Cool, off you go. Bex, off you go. You know, the lot of you get Cristiano Ronaldo, who at the time was the best player in the world. No arguing. He left. Okay. It's like it didn't faze them. Do you know what I mean? Like, we'll just get another guy in and another guy in and another guy in. And even I think his last league title that he won, winning it with players like Tom Cleverley,
Anderson,
these type of players where, and again, this is no disrespect to, you know, they're professional players, you know, so they have to be of a certain caliber to get to there. But after playing for United, Cleverley went on to Watford and Everton and those kind of clubs. Didn't really find his feet. So he went from being a Premier League winner with one of the greatest club at that point in time. Still not of all time. But at that point in time, United were untouchable. And it's almost like it didn't matter who Sir Alex Ferguson put on the pitch, he would get 100% plus out of these players, you know. So
I hate to remind you as well, 8-2. Remember that?
Yeah. I remember that.
With that team, actually, with Cleverley in midfield.
There you go. And there was that famous game where he fielded 7 defenders on the pitch at once. O'Shea playing in midfield, like crazy things like that. And people would come back and say, "Oh, but Pep Guardiola, he's won it here, he's won it there, he's won it there." My issue is with recent things coming to light. Financial issues at Barca, financial issues at City. I think until they get put to one side, and he's always going to have a bit of a tainted. There's going to be an asterisk next to his name.
Yeah,
it's an incredible feat to manage that many egos and divas in a squad. Like, you still have to keep everyone happy.
Yeah,
he's an incredible manager, but I just think there's a slight little asterisk next to his name.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you already come to a well-oiled machine, no pun intended, such as Man City, for example, who have been running smoothly for quite a while now. And don't get me wrong, he's had a huge role in that himself. But there's a good infrastructure in place. Obviously when Sir Alex came in, that was non-existent. I think I heard him actually say that in the documentary. United were worth £10 million when he took over in the 80s, and now they're worth 5 billion. Yeah, there's talks of them being sold to Qatar, or so it's insane, the transition that's happened. And like you said, managing all those egos, all of these celebrities with their millions of followers, a lot of them think they're better than the manager, and they know more than the manager.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much. I think the game has changed as well. There's so much money from such an early stage. If you're 18 years old and you're getting tens of thousands of pounds a week,
it's insane money.
What more do you have to? And this is why we will never see the likes of Ronaldo, Messi ever again, because there's so much money in this game. If you're 18 years old and you're being paid tens of thousands of pounds a week, it's hard to wake up at 4 a.m. and go running in silk pajamas. The old saying goes. You've made it. So what do you need to grind for anymore? Unless you've got that mentality that you push yourself and you keep grafting and you keep grinding. I don't think we'll see the likes of elite players like that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I have to agree with that. And actually mentioning the Beckham documentary, I still haven't seen it, but I remember seeing in like a snippet of the documentary, he mentioned that when he bought a Bentley, he was so terrified of Sir Alex Ferguson's reaction that he parked it from at the back.
There you go. And it's just, I think when you've got a leader that sets the standard and everybody knows that's the standard, you're always going to be successful, whether it's in a football club or a business. Somebody who sets the standard and the rest of, that follow understand, look, this is the journey we're on. And I think this is where Mikel Arteta has been successful recently, is that, look, guys, you either buy into what we're doing or
you get out.
See you later. Like, we don't need you. And to have 2 of the biggest players that have come to Arsenal in the last decade, Mesut Ozil and Aubameyang, sort of put to one side, saying, "Listen, you're not part of the plans anymore because you're not buying into what we're doing," is testament to that. So,
absolutely,
it's definitely makes a massive difference.
No, for sure, I fully agree with that. And I want to touch on entrepreneurship as well, actually, because it's a topic that doesn't get the right sort of, how can I put it, the approach to entrepreneurship in the media, online, is that of anyone can do it, it's easy, make money quick. Do you think entrepreneurship is for everybody?
No, absolutely not. I think, look, it's very difficult because, to run your own thing, to run your own ship, is tough because ultimately the buck stops with you. Yeah. So I've worked in different walks of life. I've had line managers, directors, and all of that, and I'm a director, or have had various different business opportunities. When I used to work for someone, if you get confused or you don't understand something or you're not sure what to do, what's your first port of call? Let me go ask my manager. Let me go. Such and such. I was just wondering. I'm not quite sure. Is this 9 times out of 10? It's what you were thinking was the correct thing.
Yeah.
But you have to get that assurance from someone else that it is the correct thing.
Yeah.
When you're running the show, the buck stops with you. So you have to be sure, you know, like you have to make the decision. The final decision's with you. So it's definitely not for everyone. And I think, you know, I've seen a lot of people try and do their own thing. And the thing that kills them the most is just the giving up. Like,
would you say it's the stress? Would you say it's the uncertainty of what tomorrow may bring? Would you say it's the backlash from family or maybe their missus?
You know, the killer thing is managing all of these things. Like, the uncertainty of tomorrow. Forget it. Forget tomorrow. You're never gonna know what tomorrow is gonna bring. Like I mentioned to you earlier.
Yeah.
I was in the middle of a successful business, thank God, and then we got locked down, and I was at that point. I really didn't know what to do because I thought, hold up, this was the blueprint. Like this was this was my future. This was how I was gonna make it. You know. And now what? What do I do? Yeah. Like, I've got to reinvent the wheel here. Like, I've got to start from scratch. And I think that's the most difficult thing to wrap your head around. When you start something and, you know, you've got to get the momentum going and get things moving. And then finally you start to see things come to fruition. And then it starts to go in the direction that you're expecting. And of course, there's, you know, bumps along the road, but it's progress. Like, progress isn't linear. It doesn't just go in a straight line. It's up, down, up, down. You know, that's how it works. But when you start to finally see it go in the direction that you wanted it to go to, it's great. And then you think, all that hard work that I put in, it was for something, you know? And then the reality is it can come crashing down at any stage. You know, we don't know what tomorrow will bring.
I fully agree with that. I think the desire for certainty is messing up a lot of people. Yeah. Because they want to know what tomorrow brings. I mean, I have a friend of mine who, you know, I would say he's an ambitious guy. He wants to achieve more. But the fear of what tomorrow may bring is paralyzing him. He can't seem to take the first step. And, you know, I've told him countless times, you know, change the way you see the uncertainty. Let it excite you. Yeah. You know, because tomorrow you can end up being bigger and better than you ever expected. Absolutely. You know, entertain that possibility as well. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Yeah. Right. So put yourself in uncomfortable situations and just enjoy it. You know, I had to smile and pinch myself a few times when I was in the previous venture that I was in. I would contact directors, you know, investors, you know, property investment, you know, moguls, if you will. I'd message them on LinkedIn directly, and I'd power out so many of these messages to these guys, until one day one of these guys responded to me, and then I found myself in a meeting with my brother across the table, from the guy who owned 99p stores. You know, wow. You know the brand 99p stores nationwide, and I found myself in a meeting with this guy. Like, who am I to be sat at this guy's table, and to be discussing working in partnership with him? And then it turned out that I started working with him on a few different bits, and it's just like, you know, unless you have the audacity to do these things at times, then you won't achieve a certain level of success. And the whole certainty thing as well, like, there is nothing wrong with certainty, by the way. If you want that life of certainty, that's fine. Like, nobody's saying that's one mistake that I used to make in the past. I used to say to people, working a 9 to 5 is deadbeat, blah, blah, blah. It's actually not. Like, cool. If that's what you want to do, then great, do it, and own it. Like, do it with passion. Do it if that's what you want to do. Exactly. Yeah. But if you're doing it and you're complaining, then I'm sorry, don't complain. Yeah, because you've only got yourself to blame. You can change your situation. Yeah. You can. Another thing that you say that I live by: nothing changes if nothing changes. Yeah. So, you know, you can change your situation. You've just got to do something about it. 100%. Yeah. And if you don't do anything about it,
that's fine, but don't complain about it.
That's exactly what it is.
You've got yourself to blame, essentially.
100%. The issue is you're sat in the same situation, whinging, and not doing anything about it. And, you know, if you did take action, you will notice that a lot of the problems that you have just disappear.
100%.
Action just solves problems.
100%. You know, pick up the phone, make that call that you're feeling a bit uneasy about. Like, just do it. Everything, just do it. Cool. You need to have an uncomfortable conversation with someone. Just do it. You put the phone down, you're like, well, that wasn't actually that bad. And I've just been playing it in my mind about how I thought it was going to go. Instead of just doing it, then, you know, oh, what are people going to think if I try? Who cares? Who cares? People are going to talk about you if you do something and if you don't do something, by the way. You know, so regardless. And that's one thing that I, you know, ironed out of myself is caring about what other people think. You know, you have to discard this completely. People are always going to talk about what you're doing. People will always talk negatively about you as a person. Sometimes even the closest ones to you, by the way. But one thing that I like to remind myself is that is a reflection of their own insecurities.
That's exactly
the fact that they haven't been able to find the courage within themselves to do what they really want to do at the end of the day. Oh, but he's only doing that because such and such put him in that position, or he only got that opportunity because his dad and this or his friend. Cool. Make whatever excuses you feel comfortable with. You carry on doing what you're doing. I'm just gonna do me. I do not care. I don't care about what other people think about me. And that's not even in a reckless sense either. It's if you allow yourself to get bogged down in, you know, other people's thoughts, you're just going to waste time. You're just going to waste time. 100%.
Yeah, 100%. I think it comes from their own insecurity. You know, people that have a lot of nonsense to talk about you, it comes from a place of them not feeling good about themselves. That's what it is. You know, there's a saying that I heard many years ago: a hater is a confused admirer.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, they see you. The reason why they're frustrated.
That's a good one. Very good one.
You know, the reason why they're frustrated is because you are doing the things that they know they should be doing. Exactly. It's like you're putting a spotlight on their false promises to themselves. You're making them look at themselves in the mirror. This is what I should have been doing.
Exactly.
You know, and I was one of those guys for a while.
100%.
I wasn't speaking negatively about people. But I was like, fucking, how's he doing?
Yeah, if only I'd got into the same, you know, or if only I figured it out. Like, and, you know, don't get twisted. We, you know, just normal people. Yeah, like there's no secret. There's no secret to success or anything like that. It's literally just turning up every single day and you know, just working hard. And that is literally it. Like there's no secret formula. There's no, you know, you're talking about how people portray entrepreneurship, about get rich quick, all these schemes, all of this, you know, like about you can make money, everyone can do it and all of that stuff. Not everyone can do it. Not everyone's built for it. But if you do choose to do it, just know if you turn up every single day and you work your socks off, you're going to get there. Whether it takes you a year, 5 years, more, you're going to get there. You're going to get there at some stage.
100%. And this is why, you know, touching on the whole 9 to 5 thing that you mentioned earlier, I used to think the same way as well. Oh, 9 to 5, oh, you know, a job just over broke, you know, all these cliche sayings, right? However, one thing I realize is that as an entrepreneur, you need a job. You need a job to support the business. You know, I've made a video on my channel where I've basically said that your 9 to 5 funds the business. You need to do that in the beginning. And look, you know, I'm not saying be disingenuous and, you know, give your employer 10% of what you could, because I live by the saying, you know, how you do anything is how you do everything. You know, if you're sluggish at your 9 to 5 and, you know, you're lazy, then it's going to translate into other areas.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, and hard work is an honorable thing. And so, you know, put in a solid shift at work. As soon as your 9 to 5 finishes, go back, relax, kiss the dog, as they say, and then hit the town, you know, do something, you know, sit down and start scheming, basically. Start thinking of, right, how can I, you know, make more money? And look, it's not always about making money. You know, if you enjoy doing something and you feel like it makes your day exciting, then fair enough, because they've done studies where they've said that beyond 60,000 a year, there's not really much of an increase in happiness. It's like it becomes like a diminishing curve, basically.
Yeah.
And I do agree with that. To be fair, I think that there comes a point where if you were to make $7,000 instead of 6, it's not that much of a difference. Of course, you know, going from making 6 figures to 7 figures for anybody would be a huge jump. But you know, I think once you've satisfied the immediate concerns of money, how am I going to afford my rent, my car payment, whatever? Once that's all taken care of, now you can start. And this is why a job's important. Because I don't know about you, but when you don't have money coming in, you can't, the creative juices aren't flowing.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't think of ideas because you're worried.
Yeah, and you're thinking, right, how am I going to solve that? And how am I going to do that? And you can't, it doesn't, you don't allow yourself to be 100% focused because your focus is taken elsewhere. And by the way, that's part and parcel. That is part and parcel. In some journeys, you know, you're going to get a point where it's like, right, what invoice am I going to pay? Is it that one this month or is it that one this month? Like, you know, you got to weigh it up sometimes. Okay, let's do that one this month and we'll tell this one, you know, hold fire for it. This is part and parcel of it. Like it is a grotty, grimy road to go down. Like it's not easy, and it's definitely not for the faint-hearted, and I definitely haven't got it figured out. And like I mentioned earlier, if it wasn't for the fact that I've got somebody to, you know, bounce ideas with and work with and ultimately look up to as well, because he's my older brother. So, you know, there's that element to it as well. So I'm very lucky in that sense.
How do you feel he compliments you? Because I know, you know, nowadays, especially from people observing how, for example, Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate, the two brothers interact. I think before they were under the spotlight, the whole idea of family working together, brothers working together, wasn't really brought to light. But now people are seeing, oh, you know what, I could actually get on with my brother. How do you feel he supports maybe your weaknesses, and how do you feel you support his?
I think in times where I think his resilience is like second to none. Second to none. Like there are times where I'm like, okay, I'm sweating here, like, and then, you know, the confidence he'll fill me with. I'll have a conversation with him for a few minutes, and then it's like, you know what, I was just blowing things out of proportion. Because again, you know, we're human beings.
Yeah.
Everybody has bad days. Everybody has off days. You know, everybody has that day where they're like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. Like this is difficult, you know, and that's just the reality of it. So I think in that sense, his resilience is unreal. He was self-employed for a longer period of time before me. So I think he got a head start on me in terms of how to deal with the difficult stuff in entrepreneurship. And there's some stuff that I'm only just getting my head around now that I'm like, right, so that's why you were so laid back before. And you know, where I was like stressing about things and all of that. And he's just like, look, just think of it like this, or look at it from this perspective, or look at it from that perspective. So I think he's got a really good way of, looking at things from a different perspective. And again, like that's the great thing about working with your brother, is that you'll always have different perspectives. You know, you'll always look at a situation in different ways. Yeah. And you know, you're always going to have different ideas as well. So it's just like, to have somebody to bounce things off of is always a plus. And to help each other. There have been times where I've said to him, listen, I need a bit of time. You call to, you know,
cover up.
Yeah, cool. And likewise as well, you know, so to have confidence that, and ultimately, you know, he's my brother. So of course I trust him with my life, you know, and that's the beauty of it, to wholeheartedly, you know, just be like, do you know what? Let me just leave this to you. I trust your decision. You know, you decide, and then vice versa as well. He'll ask me for advice, and you know, what do you think we should do here? X, Y, Z. So yeah, it's a blessing to have someone to bounce off, for sure.
Yeah, I think you know, ultimately with family, I mean, who would know your weaknesses better than your own family member?
Absolutely.
You know, and I think obviously a lot of people will fearmonger and be like, oh, no, I wouldn't mix family with business, and it will ruin things. But then it's like, it will only ruin things if you allow it to.
Yeah.
If you're cynical and you're rude and you're, negative to your sibling, then maybe, yeah. But if you know that, you know what, it's going to be tough. If you have a good sort of realistic approach to it, because I think if you're expecting it to be lovely all the time, then you're going to be in for a disappointment. But if you're like, well, I know business is going to be hard, but, let's see where this takes us.
And communication is 100% again key, communicating. Sometimes I've had to humble myself, like I've had to understand, hold on, I'm not as experienced here. So I've had to, go back with my tail between my legs and be like, you know what, you're right. I accept that. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And I think, as a man, you've got to have that quality, to not always think, I'm right, I'm putting my foot down. Sometimes you just got to say, you know what? And again, this is one thing that men of today, everyone of today's society struggles with, taking accountability. I screwed up. I'm quite, in every situation, I'm quite happy to go, do you know what? I take that.
Yeah.
I own that. I won't let that happen next time. Yeah. Whether it's in business, I've said that to my brother so many times. You know what? That's on me. That's my mistake. And I'll make sure that won't happen again. Yeah. And like, so for next time, I'm going to go through everything with a fine comb. Do you know what I mean? And on the football pitch as well, I've made mistakes that have led to opposition. That's it. Or I've made a mistake that's led to an opposition's goal. Yeah. And I turn around and I say, yeah, my responsibility. Yeah. Won't happen again. And I'll go and work twice as hard to make sure that it doesn't happen again. Do you know? So accountability, so quick nowadays to pass the buck. No, but such and such did this. Or no, but it wasn't my fault because of X, Y, Z. And it's okay to say that it was your fault. There's no problem,
That's the thing. What do you lose in saying that I was wrong?
Exactly.
Your pride, you feel like it may have been, I don't know, affected in whatever way, but just think about how many marriages and businesses would have been saved if someone would have just said, my fault, guys. 100%.
Let your guard down and just say, you know what, I appreciate it. That's me. And I think people respect you more when they see that you're able to admit when you're wrong. How, like you said, how many people, don't talk to each other or, have allowed a relationship to be ruined because neither one would stand down. And if you ask them, what was it that you fell out about in the first place? 9 times out of 10, do you know what? I can't even remember. We just don't talk anymore, So
that's the thing, and I think one phrase you could put is conflict resolution. I think it's resolving conflict in the best possible way without letting it grow into something it shouldn't grow into. It's like, if you have a small fire somewhere, contain it quickly before it causes devastation. And I think with relationships, for example, I think with guys, one big mistake they make is, either they brush it under the carpet or they say, we'll talk about it another time, and a problem that isn't addressed immediately will grow. It will magnify.
Absolutely. Yeah. No. And not addressing it is the worst mistake to make. Like, you can park it. There's no problem with parking a problem, but we've got to revisit that, and we've got to talk about that, and we've got to air it out and deal with it, because then it can fester, get worse, and then everything that happens beyond that point gets blown out of proportion. Deal with it. Be accountable. Put your hands up when you're wrong. Stand your ground when it's your turn to stand your ground as well. But ultimately, take accountability, man. Like, be responsible. Stop blaming other people for your life. Like, another thing is, as men, like, no one's coming to save you. No one's coming to save you, bro. No. Like, it's you. Yeah. It's like, okay, cool. So the climate is terrible. The economy is terrible. This is terrible. That's terrible. Okay, cool. No one's coming to save you. Like, get on with it. Crack on with it,
That's the thing. I mean, even your own parents at a certain point are going to be like, what's wrong with this guy? We've helped him, we've supported him. 100%. Why is he not able to just get things moving? And even, if you're in a relationship and you keep complaining to your wife, I mean, there's a difference between coming to her and asking for her opinion about something, and then there's also coming and whinging, complaining about the same thing usually, and that's what makes it bad. It's the fact that you've talked about this before, or you've whinged about this before, and you haven't addressed it.
Yeah.
You know, what women want to see is a guy that's a problem solver. And the way I see it is, if you have a serious problem, go to some of the strong sort of male role models in your life, whether it's your father, uncle, brother, a friend, somebody that you know you can actually count on for good advice. And, you know, because I don't, as we said earlier, we're not saying bottle it in until you blow up, you know, but go to somebody that you know you can trust, who won't use it against you. Because I think that's a fear a lot of guys have when maybe opening up to their woman. They fear that it might be used at some point. And, you know, the way I see it is, go to your strong sort of male role models and ask them for advice, and then take that advice on board and implement it, you know, and move forward. Ultimately, basically, when you're complaining, what you're actually saying is, I need solutions. I'm frustrated. You know, I keep experiencing this occurrence over and over again, and I don't like it. You know, that's what we said earlier. Nothing changes if nothing changes. That's the thing. If you do nothing with it, you're just going to keep experiencing it. You know, nothing will change.
Absolutely. And I think if you flip it and you're the person that's being asked for advice, 9 times out of 10, the person that's coming for advice knows what they need to do. They've got the answer, you know. They just need that reassurance. So like I was saying earlier, when, you know, you go to your line manager and ask them a question. So I had a director back in the days when I was working for a company, and she told me, what I do in that situation is I say to the person coming to me for advice, well, what do you think is the best answer? Because sometimes she'll get asked something and she wouldn't know the answer to it, you know? So what do you think the best answer is? Well, I think X, Y, Z. Sounds good. Let's go with it, you know? So it's like, people have the answer a lot of the time. They just want to be told that it's a good answer. Do you know what I mean? So a lot of the time, you know what you have to do, bro. You're just going to get that. Listen, that is what you should do. That confirmation as to that is the, you know.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah, that confirmation. I mean, I speak to a lot of guys on coaching calls, and they often tell me about something that they want to do. They've got an idea they've been sitting on for a while. Ali, what do you think? Shall I? And they'll run through exactly why it's a fantastic idea, and I'm nodding along, and at the end of it, I want to do it. You know?
So it's like, so what are you waiting for?
Yeah.
Do it. Like, you're just waiting for somebody to tell you. So, a lot of, you know, one thing that you've said quite a lot of times as well is something along the lines of, if you start today, like, imagine where you'll be a year from now. Yeah. You know? And that year is going to pass regardless.
So quick.
100%.
It's October.
But yeah, exactly. Before you know it, the time flies. Yeah. So you might as well pass that year doing the thing that just do it. Like, literally just do it. And again, what's the worst that can happen? Just go for it. And in a year's time, you'll see that seed that you planted is actually grown, and there might be a few misshapen leaves on that tree, you know, but it's growing at the end of the day, and progress is progress at the end of the day. Yeah, absolutely.
That's what it is. That's what it is. You've just got to, you know, stay within the process with an enthusiastic mindset, expecting to win. Now, that's something I talk about quite a lot, is expect to win. Yeah. You know, I don't wake up every single day and grind hard to lose. Yeah, absolutely. You know, so definitely expect to win, but, you know, embrace the reality of entrepreneurship and understand that, you know, you might have to start from ground zero, you know, multiple times. But as long as you are somebody who believes, I mean, it's strange to describe it really, that innate self-belief, because some people can find it even though their circumstance is terrible. Yeah. You know, like I've always known that I will be something. I don't know where that's come from. You know, I've had every job in the book, because I didn't go to university. So after A-levels, I worked in warehouses, restaurants, and I always knew, Ali, you could do something big. You know, and I would say one of the most life-changing experiences I've had, and I actually want to touch on that in just a second with you as well, is when I jumped into sales, it shook me up, because it threw me into an environment that was really uncomfortable. Yeah. You know, my first sales job actually wasn't far from here. It was for a telesales company where there was no computers or anything, just pieces of paper and an old school corded telephone. And it was an environment of 200-300 calls a day. I think the training was like an hour, you know, from starting the job. You know, there was a guy, I think his name was Mark, white shirt, typical sales, doesn't care about how you're doing or your mental health. Just off you go, start making some calls.
I want to see results, 100%.
You can't even talk to somebody next to you for a minute, because he'll come right round and check you. And so that environment for me, threw me in the deep end, and it forced me, to basically grow. And I always reference sales as an environment that changes you, because there's so many things that it teaches you. It teaches you about the importance of going again, because when you're picking up the phone, you might get told to fuck off on one call.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why are you calling me? Delete me off your list.
You
get so many objections. And then one of them I had once was, again, I was like, oh shit, I called this guy by accident twice. And so, you definitely become uncomfortable. And I always tell guys, because guys tell me, who are really young, Ali, what sort of job should I get? I'm still unsure of what I want to do. And I always say, well, if you're unsure, whilst you're figuring it out, get into sales.
Yeah.
Because even as a business owner, you use that skill every single day. So I'd love to know what your thoughts are on sales and how it's impacted the way you run a business as well.
Yeah, so sales is a funny one. So my first job out of university, I did a graduate scheme, and it was into a sales role, sales and marketing. And yeah, sales is a tough game, because if you don't turn up, nothing happens. Yeah, so it's literally an environment of input versus output type thing, right? And my manager at the time, he was a numbers guy. He just used to say to me, look, if you make 100 calls a day, you might get 20 like maybes or 20 like leads off of it. You'll get 5 meetings, and out of those 5 meetings, you'll close a big contract out of it. So if you make 200 calls a day, if you make X, Y, Z, all it is pumping out the numbers. Consistency. And he said, some of the best guys that I know are just guys that are on the phone all day. Overcoming objection.
Yeah.
You become a master of somebody says no, or somebody says, I don't want to do this because of such and such. Oh, well, that's fine, because this is why we're different and X, Y, Z, so you learn how to overcome objections. And you've just got to put the work rate into it. So sales is a mad one, because again, I would say if you're cut out for sales, you're cut out for entrepreneurship, because you're going to get turned down so many times in a sales position. You're going to get told no. You've just got to get used to being told no. And once you get that out of your system, you stop picking up the phone and cringing when cringing when somebody turns you down or something like that. You expect no. I pick up the phone. Hi, such and such. Bam. Okay, yep, on to the next one. That's 1 tally, 2 tallies, 3 tallies, 4 and then you just turn up every day, put those same numbers in. And literally, when I followed the advice that he told me, and he said, listen, if you make X amount of phone calls, in the beginning, I made 20 phone calls.
Yeah.
And then, 25. And then some days I'd make 5 phone calls and I'd get 1 meeting. I'm like, yeah, cool, no problem. But then, I said, all right, let's put the effort and the energy into it. 100 phone calls a day. Bam, 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 bam. The results, it's almost like, it's
like magic.
Like magic, exactly. But again, it's just consistency, like turning up every day, putting the effort in, and the results come. And part of the reason why I went self-employed is because I was working this sales position, and we, as salesmen for this company, we had a £30,000 a month sales target. So it was in waste management. So contracts in waste management can be, quite large annually. So every month we had a target of £30,000 a month to hit. And if you hit that target, you get £1,000 bonus added on top of your pay packet. Yeah. So I was working in that position for almost 2 years, I think. And for a year straight, I hit my sales target. A year straight, month on month. So that was, 30K worth of revenue, worth of sales every single month. And then I looked at the numbers and I thought, I've brought in over 300K worth of revenue for this company, and I've been given 12K for that.
That pisses you off a little bit, doesn't it?
If I can get a fraction of this revenue for myself, and I keep 100% of it, you know, plus costs, tax, etc., etc., and I'm my own boss and etc., you know, then I would much rather do that, because at the end of the day, if I die tomorrow, these guys will replace me just in a heartbeat.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
So that was part of the reason why I went self-employed in the first place, because I thought, okay, cool, I've got something, you know, I've got some characteristics here that I can use for myself. Let's put it to practice. And it's, you know, the removal of the safety net is scary. Don't get me wrong. It's nice knowing that on this day every month you're going to be paid X amount, as long as you work for us. That's great. That's fantastic. But then the reality is, if you put that same level of energy and effort into your own, you know, journey for a you know, prolonged period of time, you get far better results for yourself, you know?
Oh, 100%. And I think, you know, one of the dangers, if you're an ambitious guy, one of the dangers is a safe job.
Yeah,
safe.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, if you want more out of life and you're skillful and you're good at something and you flirted with the idea of doing it for yourself, then I would say do it. You know, obviously keep the job. And then when you start seeing that, okay, I've got an idea of where I want to, you know, where I want to go and maybe what customers to target or whatever. Okay, you know what, money's starting to come in. I mean, some people are going to be more, how can I put it, accepting of the risk and more sort of risk inclined. I would say we're probably the same in that regards. We don't sort of fear risk whatsoever. And I myself like functioning when there's immense pressure. Like I have to create something now. There's no other way for me except making this work. Yeah. You know, some people, they need to sort of hold someone's hand at the same time. So for me, I let go of the 9-to-5 thing a little bit early. Yeah. Because I wanted just to function with absolute pressure behind me, because that's how I function best. For some people, it might be different. But yeah, I mean, there comes a point where that's it. You got to go for it. And the returns working for yourself. You know, Jim Rohn used to say, work harder on yourself than you do on your job. And he used to say also, you know, working for yourself will make you a fortune and working for someone else will make you a living. Yeah. And so there are two different things there. You know, when you work for yourself, you're more inclined to do extra hours because you know that the reward will be huge. When you're at a company, one of the issues, at least for somebody ambitious and, you know, yourself as well, is you feel like, well, I'm just going to do it again. And you know how much you're going to earn. Yeah. And you're like, well, it's going to be the same. Exactly. And it doesn't directly reflect your work rate. You know, I can work 10 times as hard this month as I did last month, but I'm still going to get the same paycheck at the end of the month. And that's the scary thing about, you know, working in a job. It doesn't really promote ambition. No. You know, you got career progress, you can work up the ladder and all of that is great, but that takes a hell of a long time, right? Oh yeah. And you've got to wait for somebody to leave or to, you know, drop dead before you can step into their position, right? Well, that's the thing. You're not just going to get promoted for the sake of promotion. So yeah, it is a tough one when you're thinking about making that jump. It's definitely a tough one. But when is the right time? The right time is always today. Like it's never if I save up X amount, then I'm like, when people talk about, you know, if I have 3 months worth of wages and all of that stuff, and don't get me wrong, it's always great to be prepared, but I feel like you can always make an excuse as to not start something. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, for example, with my Grassroots thing, I was saying to myself for about 6 months, you know what, I'm just going to get myself a new camera. When I get myself a new camera, that is when I'm going to start, because I want, you know, the quality of my videos to be top notch, etc., etc. And really, I was just pushing it off because I was a bit, you know, apprehensive about how, you know, how's it going to be received, X, Y, Z. And then I had a conversation with myself and I thought, you know, consumed a bit of your content. And I thought to myself, what are you waiting for? Put something together. Put it out there. Yeah. Post it and see what you get. The response I got off the first video was crazy. It was like, you know, people loved it. And I thought, okay, this is great. And then I put something else out there and then people loved it again. I was like, okay, this is really good. I'm enjoying it.
And then, you know, the novelty of it being new kind of wore off. And people still supported it, and that's great. But now I'm in the place where it's like, right, consistency is what's carrying me through. And now I've just got to keep showing up every day. Because when something's brand new and shiny, everyone's like, oh yeah, support this journey and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then when that initial, shininess and brand newness of the journey wears off, then you still have to keep turning up. You still have to keep going. But I would definitely say, look, today is always the best day. You can always think of a reason as to why I shouldn't start, but start and then learn along the way, you know, tweak the machine as you go along, you know, buy that camera along the way, you know, figure out how it works as you're going along. As opposed to, you know, having to have everything set, you know what I mean?
Yeah, perfect and ready to go. And it's a form of procrastination. You know, people will hide it under the word perfectionism. Yeah. I'm a perfectionist. Yeah. It's like, no, you're a procrastinator. Yeah. Stop trying to dodge it. You know?
And again, own it. You know, like I said, we all have peaks and troughs, and I just had to be honest with myself. And I said, you know what, just get cracking. Just start, and the rest will come. And, you know, I've had some peaks, some really good bits that have gone out there and people have received well. And again, I've had to deal with some points in time where I thought, you know, this isn't going as well as I'd expected it to, but it's not always sunshine and roses at the end of the day.
It's not, and you will always question yourself. You know, you're a human being. You know, as much as people like to believe I'm bulletproof, I'm pretty much 98% bulletproof, but I do have some days where I'm like, man, this is tiring. You know, this is tiring. And, you know, I have to find it within myself. Again, I always remind myself, Ali, why did you start this? Okay, you started this because you want to impact as many lives as possible. You want to help as many people out as possible. And then when you get a comment or a DM, oh man, this really supported me. I was going through a tough time. And you're like, man, there's a reason for me to do this.
This is why, you know? So, and I think your why, your purpose has to be powerful, you know? And I think earlier, pre-family life, you know, the why was always there. But I think since becoming a family man as well, that purpose is reinforced now. It's like, I'm not just doing it for myself now, I'm doing it for my family, you know, and to give them the best opportunities, you know, growing up.
No, I fully respect that. I think, you know, when you're young, you're led by materialistic possessions, and then you realize, okay, those are nice, but if there's no one for me to celebrate it with,
100%,
it's just like if there were, I think a lot guys will buy fancy cars and stuff to most of the time please women. Yeah, you know, and I want to pick up a girl in a nice whip, you know, and the mood lighting and everything. But, you know, if women didn't exist, I think a lot of guys would change the way they do things. Absolutely. Like, what's the point?
Absolutely. You know? And again, it comes back to not caring about what other people think of you. You know, I think when I got to a point where I started to make more money than I used to make in my job, I started to, you know, I really didn't care about the designer clothes that I used to care about when I was working a job that I used to kill myself to pay for, you know? So yeah, it's crazy how your perspectives can change when you do start to taste a bit more of that success as well, 100%.
Well, that's the thing. I think, you know, when you work so hard as well, you respect every penny you make. Yeah. You know, you realize, damn, that was difficult. You know, and now you're extra careful about how you want to use that money. And now you think of ways that you can invest it to make more, you know, but when you're young and you're basically, as I like to describe it, you're basically horny for money. You know, you're broke and you just want to make as much money as possible. And then all these designer brands, they're surviving based off of the middle class.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, young men want logos everywhere, you know, and they're always the most tacky items of clothing, by the way. You know, I've seen guys with Gucci this, Louis Vuitton that, you know, and it's just like, what is going on there?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a salad. You know?
No, for sure. And I think, the older you get, it's all about experience as well. You learn these things. And I think the good thing about your content is that you're providing younger men the opportunity to learn it through, you know, your lived experience. Yeah. You know, you don't have to make the same mistakes. You know, you don't have to make the same mistakes. So I think that's the beauty of your content, is that you're giving people an opportunity to learn through your lived experience.
Yeah.
So.
And that's really the reason behind this podcast is, for me to have interesting conversations with people who are achieving a great deal with life, have, great insights to share, a lot of great wisdom. And, before we wrap up, I'd love it if you could share 3 pieces of advice to somebody who really wants to level up. Obviously we've got about 2 months left of the year, but, over the next 12 months, somebody wants to change their life. What's the first 3 things you tell them to do?
Wow. If you want to change your life, I think, first of all, you have to find the reason, like the purpose. What is the purpose? Is the purpose just to get more money, etc.? You have to find your deeper meaning, okay? Because, again, like we've said previously, on the tough days, because there are always going to be tough days, and that's just the reality of the situation. Your purpose is what's going to carry you through on those tougher days. So that's one thing. You have to have an extremely strong purpose and a strong why as to why you're doing whatever you're doing. Another thing I would say, look, the work rate and the effort is going to give you results. Okay, it's gonna give you results, and on those days where it feels like it doesn't, when the purpose carries you through, you just have to be tenacious enough to keep wading through the BS. So the work rate is a must. Like, you have to just be consistently turning up with an immense amount of work rate, and keep working hard towards the goal. Absolutely. And finally, one piece of advice that I would give is, if you're working towards something, set tangible goals. Okay, set goals that you can measure, because then you're working towards something. You got a purpose as to why you're working towards it, but you're actually working towards something. If you're working in content creation, I want to become a content creator because I want a big following. Okay, how big do you want the following to be? Yeah. Do you want it to be 50K, 100K, 250K, 1 million? And set goals that are scary as well. Like, your goals should, when you look at them, you should laugh. You know, like that's how ridiculous it should be. You should look at it and be like, because for somebody who's working a 9 to 5 to earn £1 million, you should look at that and think, exactly. So you want to set tangible goals, because then even if you fail that tangible goal and you achieve 50% of it, you're way further ahead. You're way further ahead than you were before. So if your goal is to achieve 100K subscribers or 100K followers, and you failing miserably, you got 20K subscribers. That's really good. Amazing. So at the end of the day, if you set a tangible goal and you're working towards it, you're always going to be further along the journey than the position 100%. You started. Oh yeah, I fully believe in that. It's got to excite you. It's got to excite you, because that's what's going to get you out of bed every single day. 100%. What will tomorrow bring? I'm excited to get going again. And so. Brilliant, man. Well, in that case, where can people find you again? Obviously, with your Instagram and TikTok. So Instagram and TikTok, same handle. It's grassroots.ab30. And it's an ever-changing, ever-evolving content creation. Sometimes I put, some things that are a bit comedic, and you got to take into consideration I'm a dad. So the banter is dad jokes sometimes. But if you're an aspiring grassroots footballer and you want to get more out of your game, then grassroots.ab30 on Instagram and TikTok. And that's what we're working on at the moment. And Ali, honestly, it's been a massive pleasure and a privilege, and I really, really appreciate you inviting me. Oh, brother, I was going to say that, man. The privilege is mine. I couldn't think of a better person to have open up the podcast. Honestly, appreciate it. I'm sure we will do this plenty of times.
You know, as things develop for you as well, of course.
Absolutely, for sure. So we'll check in when we're at 50k followers. Then we'll check in maybe at 250k, etc.
Oh, absolutely.
No, but for sure, it's a journey that I don't plan on giving up on at any point. In the future. So I'll
be on your case if you even think about it.
Absolutely, make sure you are. But so God willing, there's going to be some progress here.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, brother, for joining me today.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed this podcast, feel free to comment. Let us know what you think down below, whether we've rubbed you off the wrong way by saying any of the things that we've said. The Messi Ronaldo debate. There's been a few topics that we've talked about today that could ignite a war in the comments. But feel free to let me know what you think down below. Give this video a like as well. And if you're new here, consider subscribing. Of course, check out Anis's social media handles as well for more incredible content. Anis, it's been a pleasure, my brother.
Ali,
Thank you for joining me, man.
No, I appreciate it.
Pleasure's